One night, all the engines arrived at Tidmouth sheds. After a long day's work, Thomas was the last one who arrived. Then, he heard a familiar whistle.
Oh, that must be Edward.
It was Edward, and he was backing up with a jolly smile on his face.
Hello, Edward. How was your day? And what's with that face, anyway?
Oh, it was wonderful, Thomas, because I've met a wonderful child today.
But, Edward, we always see wonderful and happy children everywhere.
Oh no, Thomas. This isn't just a normal and regular child. This is more adventurous.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
You want to know how I met her?
Sure.
Fair enough, then.
And this was the story how Edward met her.
I was heading back in the yard after my passenger run on my branch line, and my driver and fireman had offered to have lunch, so I went to sleep. When I woke up, I saw a little blue-haired girl with her sketchbook, and her name was Hilda. But all of a sudden, my crew came back, and I told Hilda to hide inside my cab, though it didn't really work. And so, Hilda learned her lesson to not run on shunting yards, or even put an engine's brakes off. And that is how I met her for the first time.
Wow, Edward. That was a really interesting adventure you had.
Indeed it was. Do I also forgot to mention that she has a deer fox pet?
What is even a deer fox anyway?
Oh, it's just a mix of a white fox and a deer. Nothing much to explain.
Huh. I see.
But little did they know, the other engines were hearing the conversation.
Yeah, right. As if we're going to believe it.
Edward, we really like your stories most of the time, but this one kind of sounds a bit, over-dramatic.
And who on earth does even a parent let a child go and explore the wild out there? Surely she'll get eaten from a creature like a troll or something like that.
Wait, did Henry just say trolls?
Oh no, Percy. They're actually troll rocks, not actual trolls in general.
Oh, I see. Troll rocks?
Oh dear.
Come on, everyone. You know that Edward has a point.
Oh, really? And what makes you think about that?
Because we did just see her too, Gordon. And in fact, what Edward just told Thomas was correct.
Not to mention about the time I'll make my sandwich for the second time being.
Bob, just shut up, okay? As I was saying, yes, we really did just see her. And if you think we're lying, well then we don't care. Now if you'll excuse us, we better get some sleep. Good night, Edward. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night, driver. Good night, fireman. You were saying, Gordon?
You know what? I better get some sleep. Good night.
Yeah, me too. Good night.
Me free. Good night.
So am I. Good night, everyone.
Come on, Thomas. Let's get some rest, too.
But I was going to... All right, Edward. Psst. Edward. Edward. Edward!
What is it, Thomas?
I wanted to ask you something.
Alright then, what is it?
Do you think that Hilda would come back to Sodor someday?
Of course she will, Thomas. But only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
Thomas! Come on, Thomas, it's time to wake up. Warden will be waiting for his coaches.
Can't Percy or Toby do it?
Both of them went to help Mavis on Farquhar Quarry.
Then what about Duck and Oliver?
They're all so busy, Thomas.
Fine then. I guess I'll have to do it myself.
So Thomas went off to fetch Gordon's coaches. The more and more Thomas kept on shunting the coaches, the more and more he felt tired. Then he went off again to collect Annie and Clarabelle. As Thomas was reversing with Annie and Clarabelle to the platform, he heard a small chatter behind him.
To run off into that railway yard again, understand? I'm not mad at you, just make sure you're being safe, that's all.
Don't worry, Mum. Edward's crew told me that I wouldn't do that anymore.
Excuse me, are you Hilda?
Hilda paused for a moment and questioned how this engine knew her name.
Yes, that's me.
How do you know my daughter's name?
Oh, well, my friend Edward has told me all about you.
Really?
Yes, and actually, I was really surprised that a child like your age can do big things. Kinda like what I usually say. Little engines can do big things.
You look kinda familiar. Wait, are you...
Thomas. Thomas the Tank Engine.
The mother and daughter were surprised.
Wait, I remembered you. Edward told me about you as well.
What did he say?
He told me about the times he found an abandoned town, stocked a pirate ship with the treasure, went to a railway show, and helped another engine from an accident when you first arrived. I'm really happy that I got to be the #1 on this railway.
Thomas smiled. He likes when people came to see the railway when they talk about their stories from the engines.
I remember you as well. I remember reading those books when I was a child. I still have some of them hidden away.
Speaking of Edward, here he comes right now.
I suppose you're all having a good chat, aren't you?
Yes, we were. We were just talking about our adventures, including yours.
It's so nice to see you again, Edward.
I'm glad to see you again, Hilda.
So you're Edward. You look similar to another steam locomotive that Trollberg has.
Well, it's nice to know that there are more engines like me still around. Also, nice to meet you, Johanna, if I'm not mistaken.
It's nice to meet you too, Edward. And I heard about your meet-up with Hilda after your... incident.
Don't worry, ma'am. She's learned her lesson after all.
Well, that's good to hear.
What the... Who said that?
Oh, Hilda? I think you're pet talk.
Oh, right. I forgot to introduce you, Trig and Alpha.
Alpha?
And that's a deer fox? I thought it'd be a little bit bigger.
Trig will get bigger when he gets older.
Who's this Alpha you're talking about?
Well, I'll explain.
Hilda began explaining about Alpha to the engines. She told about the time they met the hidden people, and how Alpha was almost replaced by another elf.
And the only way to see him or the hidden people is to sign a contract.
Well then, where's he?
Thomas looked a little closer on the top of Twig's head. And then...
Gooey!
Bust my buffers! You really are small.
I'm on the tall side for an elf, actually, so, my name is Alpha.
It's nice to see you, Alpha.
It's nice to be seen.
Your voice sounds familiar. Yes, you sound a lot like Philip.
Well, I'm definitely writing this down in my report.
Oh no, here he comes.
Who is it?
It was Gordon, and he was backing up gently to the coaches.
Well, little Thomas, I suppose you fetch my coaches in the proper way a little tank engine like you should do it.
Yes, Gordon, I did fetch your coaches.
Oh, so you're Hilda.
Yes?
Came to cause trouble like you did with Edward, I suppose.
Excuse me?
A little girl like you should not be interfering with us big engines. We are too important and don't have time to talk with troublesome kids like you.
Gordon!
Just say such a thing. She learned her lesson, and you don't need to rub it in.
My daughter is no troublemaker. Yes, she may have made a lot of mistakes, but she tries to fix them.
Well, ma'am, I think you should look after your child more and not let her do these ridiculous adventures such as going out on her own.
I'll have you know that Hilda has done many great things that a lot of children like her age haven't done before.
Pah! I don't have time for this. I have an express to run.
And Gordon puffed away.
What a rude engine.
That was Gordon.
Last night, he told us that your adventure was silly.
Hilda, Gordon is a nice engine, but sometimes he can be bossy, rude, and even puts himself over engines like me, Edward, Percy, Toby, and other small engines.
He reminds me a lot of Eric Olbeck a bit. He was the new head officer of the safety patrol, and he was an absolute glory hub.
But he soon went into an early retirement, and his deputy became the new head officer. Don't get upset, sweetheart. Just don't pay any attention to him. I'm sure he'll be nicer to you eventually.
I hope so.
Thomas felt bad for Hilda. He wanted to make her happy again. Then he had an idea.
Hilda, I'm going to be working on my branch line today, and if it's okay with your mother and the Fat Controller, that you two could come along with your dear Fox and Alpha, could have a little ride along with me and my coaches as we explore my branch line.
Wait, would you do that?
Of course I would.
Hilda felt happy again.
Mum, what do you think?
Well, I think we could, but I'll have to ask their controller.
That won't be necessary.
There, walking over to them, was no other than the Fat Controller.
Oh, hello, sir. We were just going to ask you...
That if this family could go and have a ride on your branch line. Yes, I think it would be a nice experience for them. As long as they are safe with you and your crew, then I'm fine with that.
Thomas and Hilda were excited.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome, Hilda, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And you too, ma'am.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Mr.
Topham, Sir Topham Hatt, but everyone calls me as the Fat Controller. Most people call me that anyway.
Well, I hope you all have fun on Thomas's branch line. It's quite beautiful.
I'm sure it is. It will probably remind us a lot of our old home before moving to Trollberg.
Soon, Hilda, Johanna, Twig and Alpha got on board from Annie and Clarabelle. The guard blew his whistle, and Thomas set off. Finally, they arrived at Farco Station.
So, did you enjoy the ride?
It was lovely, Thomas. Looking at all the different stations, farms, and cricket fields.
And even an orange tractor.
You mean Terence? Oh yeah, he mostly works in his field sometimes. He saved me from a snowdrift once. Well, I better get going. I must turn around and return to Knapford.
And that's what Thomas did.
Come on, Hilda. Let's wait for him to arrive.
Time has passed and there was still no sign of Thomas. And the passengers were also impatient to keep waiting for him.
Where's Thomas? He said he was going to turn around, but not that much.
Oh, there he is!
Sorry if I'm late. There was a problem with the turntable at Osdale End.
Hilda and Johanna suddenly realized of what Thomas said. But this made the passengers very cross. And they all got up again from Thomas's coaches. Then there was trouble.
Wait a minute. Where's Twig?
Twig?
Hey, watch it!
Twig!
Wait!
I've got to go get him! Get off me!
Hey!
We can't leave him!
Well, we don't have any other choice.
Huh?
It must be an emergency!
What just happened?
Alright, who was the one who applied the emergency cable?
Twig! I'm sorry, boy.
I'm sorry, my daughter left her dear fox pet behind from the stations. We couldn't warn the crew about it, so we had to use the emergency cable instead.
Leaving any kind of object or pet behind, it's not an emergency.
Quite right. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Oh dear. The Fat Controller won't like that.
And he wasn't.
Know how much you three love your pet, but you have to realize that there was plenty of passengers who wanted to get to their destinations.
We're sorry, Sir Topham. I just didn't want to lose Twig again like we did back in Trollbutt.
I understand, Hilda, but you should also be careful of what you're leaving behind. And you, Miss Johanna, should be more aware if there is a real emergency.
I know, Sir Topham. I'm so sorry.
Please, sir, don't blame Hilda and her mother. It was my fault.
But, Thomas, you don't have to.
No, Hilda, it's the truth. I was in a big rush to get here because the turntable was not working properly. And I'm sorry I left you behind, Twig. I really deserve a punishment.
Well, Thomas, since you confessed about your actions for today, then I owe you an apology for what I said.
Thank you, sir.
And as for you, Thomas, you'll shut trucks in the yard until you learned how to not be so rash with your timetable. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
That's a good engine. Now you excuse me, I must go back to mine.
Sir, they want you to the telephone.
Oh, bother the telephone.
Thank you for defending us, Thomas.
That was really kind of you.
No problem, ladies. And you're welcome too, Twig.
Later that night, Thomas returned to Tidmouth Sheds very tired. Gordon and James began teasing him.
Oh, look, James. Here comes little Rushy Thomas.
Oh, not again.
What's the matter, little Rushy Thomas? Are you feeling a little rushy today? Perhaps you should rush more with your timetable every day.
Oh, but that's not the only thing, Gordon, because he also makes the passengers late.
For goodness sake, you two, will you stop teasing him? It wasn't his fault that he left Twig behind, but he also wanted to get to Nuffet as soon as possible. In fact, he wanted to show the Fat Controller how useful he is. So, I want you two to shut up and let him and the others rest.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't worry, Thomas. Just don't pay them attention. They'll change their minds someday.
Thank you, Edward.
While the situation was calming down, Henry looked suspiciously at Thomas and Edward, thinking if they were right about Hilda's adventures.
Henry, are you okay?
Huh? What? Oh, nothing, Percy. I'm just thinking.
About what?
I don't know, but I'll figure it out someday.